All right, I'm going to ask you to do something that's a little bit weird here for a second. I want you to take a moment and notice what it's like to be you sitting right where you are right now. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, just take a moment and notice what it's like to be you. Notice what it's like to have a body. Notice what you hear. Notice what you're seeing. And then also notice how the mind is trying to step in and tell you about these things. It's one of the strange parts about being human. We are rarely allowed to simply experience things. The mind is constantly jumping in, wanting to tell us about them. And they wants to put everything into a box of good, bad. Most things fall into neutral, but we put a lot of things into the good and the bad box. And we tend to chase the good things and we tend to try to reject the bad things. And that's the condition that we live in all the time. This is a hard way to live. It generates a lot of suffering. And so today we're going to talk about one of the ways that we can push back against that, and that's called mindfulness. Now, I'm hesitant to talk about mindfulness. It's really weird. At the end of my life, just like meditation, mindfulness is going to be one of those things that I look back on with a great sense of affection and gratitude, just because of the way it changed my life and what it did for me and how much it helped me. But like all good things, it got really, really popular, and all these people were talking about it. And because of social media and our very shallow culture and the way we do things now, we stripped away so much of it. We stripped away the heart of mindfulness and turned it into a bunch of little informal practices that you can do just here and there, and it just made it mean a lot less. And I think that, like, my own personal opinion is that in the process it did damage to people, because we promise them this magic bullet that's going to change everything. And if you're unhappy or you're anxious or you're sad, it's just because you're not being mindful. And you give them these shallow practices, they don't work, and then we blame people. And they, luckily or unluckily, I guess, these days they can just hop to the next guru they find online. But at its core, mindfulness is a deep practice, and it will make you shift the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. It will change your relationship to all these things. And I think when we can keep that heart of it, when we can keep it centered on that, it really does have the potential to change your life. So when we talk about mindfulness, I am talking about simply having a non-judgmental awareness of whatever's happening in the present moment. I think that's John Kabat-Zinn's definition. It's hard to remember. I've read so many books and taught this for so long now. I became a certified mindfulness and meditation instructor back, I think it was like 2012 or 2013, and might have even been before that. So it's been a minute that I've been doing this. So it's hard to remember where everything came from. But that the non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. And I like to add with an element of friendly curiosity, because I think that when we can lean into everything and simply ask ourselves, like, what is this? Like, what's really going on? Just like we talked about in other episodes, it changes everything. It changes our relationship to that moment, because we're no longer moving into everything with judgment. We're no longer pushing into everything with the sense of how it should be. We're no longer leaning on other people or manipulating them to be the way that they should be or the way that we want them to be. And that's one of the interesting things about the mind, is that it can rarely differentiate between how we think things should be, what's right, and what we want. It kind of just jumbles all those into one big pile and then judges everything accordingly. So now, mindfulness and meditation are not synonymous terms, even though that's how they've always been presented. Mindfulness is a type of meditation. We talked about meditation last time because being able to center your mind, being able to teach your mind to stay on one place is the key. Like, if you can't do that, you can't really be mindful, because your mind's just going to go all over the place. But when you learn to keep your mind in one place, when you learn to follow that breath and let it become your entire universe, get distracted, come back to that breath, over time you develop a steadiness. Over time you do notice that there are fewer and fewer thoughts. And the more that you're able to do that, the more that you are able to simply be in the experience, to be where you are at that moment. And you start to notice the mind's running commentary. It is always commentating on everything. The mind rarely just allows us to be in a place where we're just doing what we're doing. Now, I want to say, because of practicing mindfulness for years, because of practicing meditation for so long, the mind does allow me to simply be in one place most of the time. When I'm doing this right here, like I just noticed it a moment ago, it's one of those things, it's the noticing kind of broke the flow. But I noticed it's like when I'm doing this, I'm just here doing this. I'm not thinking about other things. I'm not thinking about what I've got to do later. I'm not thinking about what somebody said. Um, every once in a while, I notice that I look over here and see the little screen that shows me, and I think like, oh, I don't like my face, or oh, does that picture crooked? Stuff like that. But that's the important thing, is just like with meditation, it's not about the mind never commentating. It's about recognizing when the mind is commentating. It's about recognizing when the mind is offering opinions on things that simply are. And it starts to become kind of funny to you after a while. Like my mind, I get a big kick out of my mind of just kind of laughing at it, because it's like I went out to run the other morning and I step outside and it was colder than I thought it would be. And my mind says, "Oh, why has it got to be cold?" Well, I live in a high plains desert. It's November and it's that time of year. That's just how the weather works. It's strange that my mind seeks to have an opinion on it. Now, it could be useful if it's like, oh, it's a little bit colder than I thought. Let's go put on a jacket. But my mind wanted to make a judgment with condemnation about it. Like, it shouldn't be this cold. And then the next thing is that it was dark. And here's my thing. I don't like being out in the dark. I don't like when it's cold and it's dark together. It just brings up a lot of old stuff for me, old memories, and I have this negative connotation with it. And my mind grabs that thing from the past and brings it to the present and says, "Oh, it's cold and dark. This is no good. I don't like this. This is where things go wrong. This is where things go bad." But here's the really cool thing about being mindful of that. I can be aware of it. Now, that awareness, it's not just awareness, because there's many things we can be aware of and have judgment about. And so instead, I can be aware of it with acceptance. Like, oh, the mind doesn't like this. The mind does not like it being cold and dark. And it's bringing up these old memories and these old times and these old, just awful things. And it's bringing them to the present. And that's okay. It's what the mind does. My mind has this pattern where cold and dark equals these things happen. And so it's kind of like stepping in front and trying to protect me. So I can accept that. But then I try to take it a step further and have a sense of friendly curiosity about it. Like, oh, what is this okay? What is this really? Like, what is this aversion that I'm feeling? And does this aversion really matter? Does it really mean anything? Do I need to change anything because of this aversion? And a great deal of the time, the answer is no. And so I simply went and I ran. And before long, I'd forgotten that it was cold and dark. And then the sun started to come up a little. And it was actually this cool moment. And I was able to be mindful in that moment of just how fortunate we are to see the sun come up and to have this wonderful planet that we live on, and how cool things can be. And I'm doing all this in the midst of a hard time in life. Like I've had some health issues. I've been hypothyroid, so I feel depressed and I feel pretty sluggish. Pretty sluggish. I'm exhausted all the time. I have no energy. I have things going on in my life right now that are beyond my control, that are very difficult for me to process and to deal with. And mindfulness helps me in that as well. Because of years of meditation, because of years of mindfulness, like I'm rarely the cause of the difficulty in my life. Like I don't make many decisions that bring trouble to my door. I don't make many decisions that bring like unhealthy stress to my door, just because I'm pretty mindful and I'm pretty freaking boring these days. Like there's not much I want to do. Because of this, and because I love people, and because I put myself in a relationship with people, I'm often like other people's stress, other people's difficulties often become my own. Other people's inability to deal with things often becomes mine. And then I'm once again able to start watching my mind step in and say, well, they shouldn't be doing this. They should know better. All these judgments that it wants to throw out, it's trying to protect me once again. It's saying, hey, we've got this nice, calm, easy life. Everything's working out. You've worked hard and you're at a good place. Are you going to let this thing mess it up? But mindfulness, that sense of acceptance, that sense of friendly curiosity allows me to say, I get that. It allows me to tell my mind, like, hey, I get what you're trying to do and I appreciate your help. But I'm going to lean in. I'm going to help this person. I'm going to stay in this relationship, and we're going to have compassion for them. We're going to have a sense of friendly curiosity about what they're doing instead of applying motives and applying all these negative templates to what they're doing. We're going to remain open, and we're going to remain accepting, and we're going to remain kind. And the cool thing about that is that I do all that with intentionality, with choice. So I don't fall into resentment, because I'm able to do it without expectation. I'm able to do it without this sense of like, well, I'm doing this for them, so it means they have to do this for me, or they better behave this way in response. That right there, those are all like, if you watch your mind, you'll see it's constantly imposing these things on reality. It's constantly imposing these things on other people. And reality and other people are two things we will never have control over. We have control over our response to them, but we don't have control over those things. And I'll be honest with you, you wouldn't want control of those things. Like, we don't know what's best for ourselves. We don't know what's best for the world or for reality. There are so many things I look back on that I'm so grateful that I did not have control over them, because the way they turned out was better than I could have ever imagined. When you are able to live with a sense of mindfulness and the compassion and the acceptance and the friendly curiosity that comes with it, you can move into these hard things with yourself, with the world, with your society, with other people, and you're able to remain steady, and you're able to approach it with intentionality instead of reactivity. Now, I want to be clear. That all sounds like the magic bullet bullshit that I was talking about at the beginning from Instagram and TikTok, where, oh, well, if you're experiencing anxiety, you're just not being mindful. Like I just said, I have been experiencing a deep depression over the past few months. I think some of it is like probably physiological because of my thyroid and stuff. Some of it is life conditions. Some of it's just this time of year. I do struggle when it gets cold and dark. It's just, this is something I've noticed for decades now. So that struggle is still there. I still deal with a significant amount of anxiety. Like, look, I've been super happy posting on YouTube. I really like YouTube. I generally like the community, and I don't get a whole lot of comments, but I have anxiety every time I see that little notification bell up at the top because somebody left a comment. In general, they're positive. Some people ask questions or push back, and that's cool. But every once in a while, I'll get like that wild, just out of pocket comment. And I'm 47 years old. I didn't get on the internet till my mid 20s. Like, I've always kind of been like a loser, and I didn't know about the internet. And so I'm not really adjusted to this world where faceless people can have an opinion on things. But once again, mindfulness and being able to lean in instead of like try to get away from it is so helpful in those moments. When I log on to YouTube and I see the little notification thing, I can take a moment and just be with what's going on in my body. Like, oh, I feel anxiety in my chest. That's where it's most noticeable to me. I can notice my mind, the things my mind starts saying about, I don't even want to click on it, or what did somebody say, and why do people have opinions, and da 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 da. And I'm able to simply observe these things. And I'm able to observe them with a sense of acceptance, with a friendly curiosity. I'm able to have a sense of compassion for myself and for my mind. As my mind spins out trying to protect me from this perceived threat, it's kind of like I look at the mind a lot as like, it's like those yappy dogs that you see, like, they go crazy for everything. It's like, oh, the mailman and Girl Scouts and somebody walking and leaves blowing, and it's like, ah, rah, 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 just going nuts. Those little yappy dogs. To some extent, our minds are like that. My mind has gotten a lot less yappy over the years, but it's still like, I think that with my history and like just my life in general, and probably the way I'm wired, it's always going to be a little bit like keyed up. It's going to always be scanning for threats and problems. But when you have a dog like that, if every time it barks, if you scream at it and yell at it and throw a book at it or something, like, that's not going to help it. That's going to increase its level of anxiety. It's going to confirm to it that there's a threat. With the mind, instead of yelling at it or screaming at it or throwing a book at it, I'm able to say, like, hey, we're okay. This is all right. I'm able to let it be as it is. I'm able to be with the emotions. You start to learn that your emotions are not necessarily negative in and of themselves. One of the most important things I ever learned is that anxiety and excitement feel the same. They feel the exact same in the body. The mind frames it in a certain way. When you can be mindful of that, you can recognize that framing, and you can question it. You can lean into it with that friendly curiosity. Sometimes I do have to admit, like, no, I'm really anxious about this. I'm really nervous. This scares me. And say, okay, cool. We'll be okay. We can do it scared. We can do it anxious. We can do it terrified. And it allows you to live with this way of grace and compassion for yourself, while also having expectations of yourself to do things, to do the things you were put here to do. Mindfulness radically transformed my life. I talked about it a little bit last time. I'm trying to be where I share more about. Somebody told me, I've gotten a couple comments from people saying like, hey, the stuff you talk about is good. It would help me more if I could understand how it helped you. And what I can tell you is that mindfulness, meditation, these things, they help me. Like, I quit drinking, quit drugs, quit smoking cigarettes. That was a tough one. they've radically changed my relationship. I've had relationships that absolutely would have fallen apart or been broken if I was not able to lean into them in this different way. Now, here's the other thing that's important about mindfulness. It doesn't just make you accept everything. You don't turn into like a brain dead moron just walking down the street where everybody's fine. Like, I do choose to exit relationship with people, not frequently, but I do. There are people who I say, okay, cool, this is how this person behaves. I can understand why they behave that way. I can accept that they behave that way, but I'm not going to allow it to happen in my life. The story I tell with this a lot of the metaphor, I guess. Metaphor, simile, I don't know the difference between those. But like, imagine if your neighbors have a dog and they neglect it and they're unkind to it and they don't feed it and they leave it outside and it's hot and it's cold and it doesn't have water. Like, over time, this dog could become vicious, especially if they're mean to that dog, if they hit it or they abuse it. Like, that dog could become vicious. Like, you can have a sense of compassion for that, but if you jump the fence, the dog is probably going to bite you. There's a lot of people like that who life has beat them up and roughed them up in a way where they are kind of vicious. They respond in ways that are not healthy. You can have compassion for those people and still say that they're not allowed in your life, and still have boundaries with them, appropriate boundaries. But what I found is that mindfulness has allowed me to set my boundaries a lot more intentionally. My first instinct is always to see if I can help. My first instinct is always to lean in and to say, okay, like, what does this person need? But what I found is that there are some people who, that's not my role, that's not what they're looking for, and that's cool. But they don't get to bring all that to my door, especially or to my family's door, to impact the life that I'm building and the life that like other people that I'm supposed to protect. When I can do all that mindfully, 99% of the time it turns out well. 99% of the time I'm able to approach it in a healthy way and do good things for people. And like, the really, really cool thing about meditation, about mindfulness, they're free. You don't need to buy all the meditation cushions and clothes. You don't need a special place. You need to sit down. You need to follow your breath. When you get distracted, notice distracted and come back, and then add in a moment of mindfulness where you just notice what it's like to be you. Like, you can do it right now, just like we did at the beginning. Notice what it's like to be you sitting right here. Like, notice what it's like to have a body. Like, notice what you're hearing. Just notice the sounds around you. And notice how the mind wants to commentate, but don't judge that. Just keep coming back to being right here. Bring your attention back to your breath. When an emotion arises, notice it. Don't latch onto it, but don't reject it. When a thought arises, don't latch onto it, don't reject it. The more you do this, the more you notice how the mind's doing it all the time throughout your day, and just how much suffering that is actually causing you. Doing this as often as possible. I set little alarms. I think multiple times in this podcast, my watch has gone off. Those are moments when I stop. I try to be grateful for something. I try to see what my mind is judging. I just try to be mindful for a moment and lean into whatever's happening with a sense of acceptance and friendly curiosity. Continuing to build this out just deepens that practice in your life, and it really can affect everything in a deep way. So I'd encourage you to try that. There's so many videos on mindfulness. There's so many guided meditations. I put a link to a meditation in the last one. I'll put a link to to other mindfulness podcasts in this one. But this is a practice. It's not a silver bullet. You're still going to be human. You're still going to experience emotion. You're still going to have trouble, but mindfulness has the capacity to change our relationship to those things, to choose our relationship to those things. And that is something that transforms every aspect of your life on a day-to-day basis.